The Mavericks win last night. What a game that was, because you had the guys back in action. You had Luka, you had Kai doing their thing again. But for me, I don't know why. I love Daniel Gafford. I know that is friend of the evening show with Blake. I know they've gotten really tight. I love, since he got here. Yeah, I've just loved the personality of him. Sure. The way that he plays, and then last night he had one finish where he had touch under the basket and goes behind his back and hits it off the backboard. And I was like, not only does he do all these big man things, but he's got touch too.
He was 7 for 7, and he had 21 points. If he had made his free throws, he might have had 30.
Yeah, that was the only thing that wasn't working for him, was he was getting trips to the line and he wasn't finishing there.
The ones were amazing because he's so strong. They were grabbing his arms and it still go in.
Yeah. Now that being said, I don't want to act like Portland is a world beater or anything. They're a bad basketball team, and the Mavs should have run away the way they did last night. And quite honestly, that third and fourth quarter for last night, would they score 40 in the third quarter last night? Those two middle quarters were where they won that game and ran away with it. But the pace, Sia, you were there last night. Yep. That pace just seemed like Portland was like, we're going to push it, and the Mavericks were like, yeah, this is what we do too. Right.
Here's what's so wild: they played Portland in Portland. Remember that 40 days trip, and they only came home 4 times. Yes. Most November and part of December. They were in Portland. And they beat the Blazers, I want to say, like 139 to 134, something like it was in the 130s. The Mavericks scored 132 last night, beat them 132 to 108. So the defense was there, but Portland knows how to score. They're just not a good team. They've only won 9 games. Mavericks, meanwhile, have won 19 games. That being said, that tempo, it's definitely Luka understands this because it's also saving his legs for the playoffs. But with that tempo, they're still playing defense, because I don't want people to think it's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah. They're clamping down on defense as well. And once again, you had a lot of scoring from a lot of different people, and it wasn't just Luka trying to carry them on their back. Here's another little nugget that a lot of people aren't aware of. Their starting lineup last night, by the way, Luka's been out for about 5 days because since the Golden State game in San Francisco, because he had a heel bruise. Luka's back. You got Luka, P.J. Washington, Derek Lively, Kyrie Irving, and Klay Thompson. That starting lineup has only been together starting 6 times. They're 6-0.
Really?
Because it had been Daniel Gafford starting, and then he said, okay, let me slide in. Because he can switch them back and forth.
Yeah.
And Lively has no problem. And that's the other thing. Derek, the majority of these players, in fact, the whole team, they do not care how many touches they get. They don't care who starts or not. They're like, man, we just trust in the whole process because we know we're good. And they are. And to show you how sneaky good they are, they're 19-10. That 40 days and only 4 games at home, they only lost 2 games on their road trip. They went 12 out of 14.
Yeah, they're 14 out of their last 17.
This is not good. The 4 game. Remember in the first part of the season, they lost 4 straight games. All of those were last possession losses, like 1 possession losses. Those 4 games, imagine if they had won that last possession. They'd have the best record in the league right behind Cleveland, right with them. Yeah. Right now, there's only like 4 teams who have a better record than the Mavericks in the entire NBA.
You go look at those Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich teams back in the day. Go look at how in the middle of a season they would have an 18-game win streak. Yeah, or a 16-game win streak. They would win games, and then they'd have a loss, and then they'd come back with another 10 straight. And you're like, that's how the best teams do it. They have large, swaths of wins, just sections where you're like, they didn't lose for a long period of time.
Here's one other note to take it, because a lot of people are not aware of the plus minuses, which is a stat that even if you don't score a lot of points or get a lot of rebounds, you're making the other guys on the floor better while you're out there. Across the board last night, everybody had pluses. Listen to this: P.J. Washington plus 27, Derek Lively a plus 16, Kyrie Irving a plus 30, Luka Doncic a plus 16. Klay Thompson a plus 21, Daniel Gafford a plus 10, Quentin Grimes a plus 14. I could go on and on and on. That's just showing you this is a team that's playing like a team.
There is something I learned about this. Mike taught me this. I did not know this. If you check into a game during free throws and the guy misses a free throw, that gives you a negative. So anybody that was negative last night was checking in when Daniel Gafford was on. I love Daniel Gafford. I just want to make sure everybody understands
hurt
that.
Plus minus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Alec, this team, I saw this from Anthony Edwards, and it really started making me think about what this Mavericks identity is. Anthony Edwards says that it's just 4 people at the rim. He said we're not an offensive team, we're a defensive team. So I don't think there's going to be much change. I just think we got to play better defense, and they've been a very strong defensive team since they put that thing together. He said, yeah, we don't have S on offense. We have no identity. I mean, we know I'm going to shoot a bunch of shots. We know Drew's going to shoot a bunch of shots, and that's all we know. We don't really know anything else. I mean, it's not on the coaches at all. It's on us. We're out there playing, but we got to make it easier for each other. Coaches put us in great positions too. We just don't do it. And it goes back to, for me, the identity of the Mavs used to be stand in a corner and wait until Luka gives you a basketball. And when Luka gives you a basketball, then you can shoot your three-pointer. Don't do anything else because you can't do anything else, but Luka will find you, and once he finds you, he knows it's your time to shoot. This team is completely different from that identity, and the identity now is, how would you describe it?
I would say, in a way, it's like follow the energy, if that makes sense, because it's not, like you said, it's the complete opposite now. It's not standing around and waiting for something to be created for you. Even in the non-Luka minutes last night, like specifically with Quentin Grimes, that it felt like it was kind of let everything develop in front of you, see and feel out that rhythm, because we were talking about the pace of play. The Mavericks are playing, I think, the 7th fastest pace of play right now in the NBA. And that's for a reason. It's not in the top 5, but it's in the upper echelon because they know when to speed it up. They play with a high motor, but they know when to slow it down too. Mm-hmm. So bringing the ball up the court, just, off of a regular inbound, they know, okay, we have time. We can let things develop. But you saw it in the fast break last night too, that, hey, if we do pick someone off here, we can fly down the court. We can score with pace. I think 17 fast break points last night that you saw off of 10 different turnovers by 9 different players.
Yeah.
Like, you are starting to see everybody is kind of reading the room a little bit more and making decisions on their own without going into business for themselves. Like, you've seen Luka do in the past. You've seen Kyrie do in the past. You saw it even in the playoff run at times last year where guys were kind of going into business for themselves, playing a little bit of hero ball. Now it's just trusting things. And you saw it with Daniel Gafford last night on an and one that he got. Quentin Grimes driving to the basket from the left corner, from the three-point line. He's got an open shot. He drives, fakes the shot, and just flings it to Gafford right in front of him because he says, we can get 3 here. It's feeling out that rhythm, and part of that is because of the pace of the play. So feeling out the energy and feeling out, really just reading the room. It's all about tempo now, and it feels like it hasn't been about tempo in a really long time. And it's not just Luka's fault, because the pieces around him when he first got here, exactly, they didn't have enough.
Yeah, he had to back then.
But now you can actually work with that. You totally see them slow things down and let him just ISO and completely demolish people in front of him. But you'll see him have a willingness to be that tertiary guy to a Kyrie Irving who wants to move a little bit quicker. So it's just feeling out the rhythm and the feel of that game in that moment against who you're playing right then.
Speaking of feeling out, there were some fans during the game that were texting on or actually posting stuff on social media saying, how come Jason Kidd's not playing Najee? What did Najee do wrong? How come he's playing Maxi Kleber all the time? I'm like, why are they nitpicking this when you got to basically trust that Jason Kidd knows what he's doing? You think you would learn this by now. What he's doing is you're playing Portland, a team you're supposed to beat anyway. Najee has been brilliant, right?
Played a lot of minutes too.
Yeah.
Played a lot, probably more minutes than he's played at this point in any season.
In any season with the New Orleans Pelicans. But here's where he is now. Mavericks love Najee. All right, he's a Swiss Army. His nickname is Knife because he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do it all. His productivity in the paint, these floaters and things that he does, nobody saw that coming. So why is Kidd not playing him that much? Well, number one, he was coming off of an illness. And yeah, he's been all right, but guess what? This is a team you're supposed to beat, and you got to get Maxey back into the groove. Maxey had I want to say a rib situation, a bruised rib or something. Well, you're going to need Maxey at some point in time, even if you say, well, what makes you think Max is going to be here at the trade deadline? You have no idea, but you still got to have him contribute. So here's the perfect situation where you can get Maxey back to contributing, or the guys around him who hadn't been working with him last year. You're some of the new guys like Q Dot. They can see what Maxey can do with it. I mean, you got to use the opportunities to where it's not a matchup against the Celtics or a matchup against the Lakers or a matchup against, well, we got to win this game because, well, you know you're going to beat Portland. If you don't, that's saying something about the entire roster. If this roster, as deep as it is, cannot beat Portland, they had a come-to-Jesus meeting earlier in the season when they lost at Utah. Utah sucks. And after that game, they didn't have Kyrie. They didn't have. Guess what? They had a come to Jesus meeting. They said, if we're so deep, we need to step it up. And you see what they're doing.
From the 361, this team is a pick, pop, roll, pass, crash, and
the boards.
That is definitely, and they have the bodies to do it.
They really do.
And
versatile.
This is where I think their identity lies more in adaptability. Mm-hmm. And I love what you said, though, Alec. Follow the energy, because on offense, they definitely, and even on defense, too. On offense, they feel, I got something else here. They definitely feel where the play should go. And I always love that moment. We had Jason Kidd on. We were talking to him about Scalabrine. And he said, Scalabrine told us, he was like, he passed me the ball, and I passed it out, and then it was a turnover, and Jason Kidd was staring lasers through me. And I was like, what's up? And he said, I already made the decision for you to shoot that. And now it's a turnover on me instead of an assist. I already made the decision for you. Yeah. You don't have to do it. You don't have to think. I'm thinking for you.
Quarterback on
and
the
that's
floor.
The way this team is. Like, Luka's the thinker for them, and everybody just kind of responds. Kyrie's a good thinker too.
Yes.
But if you go back, I know this is dumb. I watched Uncle Drew a while back, and hearing the line, they don't play the game the right way, from Kyrie as Uncle Drew, I hear it whenever I watch him play. When he's going, this is the right way to play the game.
Right.
There's pockets. There's energy pockets that he's talking about. But that team, that era of what Pop put together. When I watched Greg Popovich's teams dominate, they were able to beat you at what you could do, and they were able to beat you at what they could do.
Exactly.
It didn't matter what it was on the court. They were good. Their bench was so deep and so versatile that they could do anything you could do and just as well. And that's where this Mavs team is right now. If you want to run, they'll run you off the floor. If you want to play big, they'll play bigger than you. If you want to shoot threes all day, they can shoot them just as well. They have every tool at their disposal. That's why I'm not really looking for them to move anything off this roster right now, because of the way that it's built. When you get in the playoffs, you have, 5 teams, 4 teams you're going to have to match up against.
Exactly.
And neither one of them are the same. So you're going to have to be able to adapt with that roster. I know Corey Brewer didn't play a huge role in the entire run to the championship, but that one time they needed him, they pulled him off the bench, and he brought life to the team.
Exactly.
And you're going to need that in the playoffs whenever you're adjusting to Oklahoma City versus Denver versus Boston. All those things are unique and different.
Exactly. So I love the way you summarized that up, and I'm glad you brought in Pop, because for those who don't know, Pop has always admired Jason Kidd when he was a player.
Yes.
In fact, he wanted him to play for the Spurs at one point, and they couldn't work out a trade. At the same time, when J. Kidd got fired from the Milwaukee Bucks, the first person he was consulting with was Popovich. He went on a tour picking the brains of Popovich, Rick Carlisle, a couple of other different head coaches to see, because remember, he was hired as a head coach for the Brooklyn Nets without any coaching experience. So there's a couple of things he wanted to work on, and he did. Became the defensive coordinator for the Lakers when they won the championship at the bubble. So he's always been a high IQ, basketball IQ guy. He's a very brilliant guy. I'm talking about Jason Kidd. And the Dallas Mavericks are versatile like that because he picked those things up from Popovich. The only time I have a concern about the Dallas Mavericks is when Luka and Kyrie are both out. We saw that in the first game against the Clippers. But guess what? There might be a situation in the playoffs where that does happen, so they're preparing for that too. You got to prepare for it, where Luka and Kyrie both aren't there. There might, like, for example, Kyrie was nursing his shoulder. It was kind of like CD. He could have played through it if, I'm talking about last Thursday against the Clippers. He could have played through it like CD's been playing through all season, because he played through it most of the way. I'm talking about Kyrie. J. Kidd said, you know what? No.
Don't need you tonight.
We don't need you tonight. Luka's not going to play tonight either. Let's see how these guys do without both of y'all.
So let them get their work
He's
in.
getting the plans in stuff for the playoffs.
You did bring up Quentin Grimes. Y'all both did earlier. early when he was here, I was like, oh, it's just like Josh Green. Like that's what I was like. It's just like Josh Green.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's found himself in the offense, and now that he's found himself defensively, it no longer looks like just like Josh Green. He's got that high energy,
yes,
but he's got more skill, and he fits in better with this because he knows what he's doing and he knows what his role is. And
he had 20 points against the Clippers Saturday.
It is nice. And the confidence you're seeing right now, Josh Green never had that confidence.
Never. It's like he would disappear.
Yeah, he never had that. And Quentin right now looks like, hey, I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm supposed to take a shot right now.
Yeah,
and I'm going to make it.